Dark targets.
Many people have been asking us for clear statistics on the peak of conventional oil. We are here to give these stats to you and to confirm the peak of 2005 in conventional oil, and also to give a clear warning of what the future can hold. The peak of conventional oil production was in 2005. Pricing pressure on oil prices will be constant in the years to come. That is one clear conclusion. Again, we've had a conventional oil production peak in 2005, and this peak of conventional oil has been now there for 8 years. Now, how does the conventional oil production curve look like from the 1930s until today? In light gray you see the history of the production, and in the future on the right hand side the forecasts from 2005 and forward. In dark gray you have the zone within which the production should be happening. In dark gray are the most optimistic production scenarios, amongst them the one of the International Energy Agency, which is the PR arm of the oil industry. In light gray is the scenario of the depletion of the existing conventional oil fields. The difference between the conservative forecast in light gray and the dark gray scenario is the capability of finding new fields and or of extracting more oil from the existing known conventional oil reserves. If you want additional literature on the peak of conventional oil having been hit in 2005, you can find that at many different places. Now let's zoom in to the peak of 2005 and the following 7 years until 2012. Let's have a closer look. When we look at the shape of the graph, we see a relative symmetry between what happened before 2005 and what happened afterwards. One thing is for sure, the production of 2012 is way below the production of 2005 in conventional oil, and no sign indicates that we're going to come back to the previous levels of 2005. We will get to that in a few minutes. The peak oil theory gives us the following indications. Number one, the bell-shaped curve is symmetrical. Number two, the slope on the upside is equivalent to the slope on the downside. Number three, the amount of oil to be extracted after the peak is equivalent to the amount of oil extracted before the peak. We're ready to revise our judgment on the actual year of the world peak if the conventional oil production hits 70 million barrels per day, which was the previous peak. It would cancel our judgment of a peak and create a new peak. We have many reasons to believe that the peak of 2005 is definitely the peak. We already have a drop in production of conventional oil per capita worldwide. We have twice as many wells drilled for the same production as in 1995. So one well produces half of what it did before. The increase in energy return on energy invested. In other words, it takes more energy to pull out energy than before. A lot of the conventional oil reserves remain in deep-sea oil fields, but deep-sea drilling is still a dangerous and random oil play. Look at Deepwater Horizon. Five more countries have peaked in the last 2 years. Also, only 9 out of the 101 oil-producing countries have not peaked their conventional oil production yet. There are 9 countries left. The observed peak of 2005 is quite symmetrical. All these elements tell us that the peak of conventional oil has been reached in 2005. Now, how do we look after the statistics of 2012? 2012 is the yellow dotted line. Before 2005, the humans have pulled out 981 billion barrels of oil. So after 2005, we should have another 981 billion barrels to pull out of the ground on Earth. Between 2006 and 2012, we have pulled out 171 billion barrels from the ground. So, theoretically, 810 billion barrels of oil, conventional oil, are left to be produced on Earth. This production will happen in a decreasing and terminal manner with strong upward pricing pressure. As a consequence, we don't have the impression that the tendency will ever be inversed. But we are keeping our 2005 judgment as a peak and strongly believe that no new peak will be achieved for conventional oil in the foreseeable future. We are intentionally not looking at non-conventional oils in this video. Tar sands and shale gas are separate subjects treated separately. There are only 2 countries with economically recoverable tar sands and 10 with economically recoverable shale oil. In other words, we have pulled out 59% of all conventional oil reserves on Earth. Only 41% are left. We are big believers that the world peak has happened in 2005, and this is a definitive peak. The other types of oil also deserve their specific analysis for their peak. We will be covering tar sands and shale oil in a different video soon. For those who don't understand or don't believe that a peak can exist, this is clear evidence, and it has already happened for conventional oil. Oil fields peak, oil regions peak, oil countries peak, and the world peaks, whether one likes it or not. As said Upton Sinclair Jr., the prolific American author, it is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it.
Stock targets.